Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are delighted to share with you different stories of love and betrayal from around the world. So let's begin our story journey today. The moment Callum pushed open the door to his home, the world seemed to collapse before his eyes. On the living room sofa, his wife Vivian was sitting on Quentin's lap, the two of them intimately close, not even flustered by his arrival. Vivian merely looked up indifferently, a flash of impatience in her eyes. "We're signing the divorce papers tomorrow anyway," she said contemptuously, her fingers still entwined around Quentin's neck. "Can you move out, you worthless man? Stop being an eyesore." Callum stood at the doorway, his clenched fists turning white from the pressure. He could feel the blood pulsing at his temples, anger and pain sweeping through his body like an electric current. But he didn't lose control. The knee injury 3 years ago that nearly ended his professional career and the long, lonely rehabilitation process had given him enough resilience. Perfect, he took a deep breath, his voice low and cold. "So you won't know what I received today." Vivian and Quentin exchanged a mocking glance, seeming to think this was just Callum's futile struggle. Callum didn't say another word, turned around, and quietly closed the door to the home that no longer belonged to him. Callum had once been one of Australia's hottest rugby stars. In those days, every time he appeared on the field, he would trigger frenzied screams from fans, and the sports pages frequently featured his heroic figure sprinting to score. His posters hung in sports shops all over Sydney, and sponsors competed to invite him to endorse various products. That was also when he met Vivian. She was a newly arrived reporter at the sports channel, young, beautiful, and ambitious. Their marriage began under a brilliant canopy of stars. Callum took Vivian to all kinds of high-end parties, while she gained career attention because of this relationship. Back then, Vivian's eyes were full of love and admiration, proud to be Callum's wife, enjoying all the benefits this relationship brought her. Everything seemed perfect until the game that changed everything. In the final of the Australian National League, Callum severely injured his knee during a hard collision. As he lay in pain on the field, the entire stadium held its breath. The doctor's diagnosis was devastating: severely torn ligaments, possibly ending his career. The days after the injury were like a nightmare. Callum went from being a star in the spotlight to an ordinary man relying on crutches to walk. He had to give up his high athlete salary and began working as a trainer at a small gym, with drastically reduced income and fading fame. Old friends and sponsors gradually distanced themselves, and the media no longer pursued his news. All these changes also silently affected his relationship with Vivian. During the first few months, Vivian would still comfort Callum, telling him everything would get better. But as time went on, the disappointment in her eyes became increasingly obvious. As a reporter for the sports channel, she still lived in that bright, glamorous world, attending various events and parties, while Callum became the reality she didn't want to face when she returned home. "Are you just lounging on the sofa again?" One Saturday afternoon, Vivian returned from another sporting event and saw Callum watching game recordings, commenting with annoyance. "I'm studying game techniques," Callum explained. "It helps with my rehabilitation training." Vivian rolled her eyes. "Please, do you plan to live like this your whole life? As a nameless gym trainer? And could you change out of those old sports clothes? Every time I bring friends home, I feel like I'm taking them to a museum." Callum didn't answer. He couldn't tell Vivian that he had never actually given up. While seemingly calmly accepting his current situation, he was secretly receiving rehabilitation treatment. His old coach Donovan believed he could return to the field and had put him in touch with the prominent sports medicine specialist, Dr. Landon. Every day, when Vivian thought he was just working at the gym, he was actually undergoing rigorous and painful rehabilitation training. And the appearance of Quentin was undoubtedly the last straw for Callum. Quentin had been Callum's teammate, a player of average talent but skilled at scheming. On the field, he had never been as outstanding as Callum, always living in Callum's shadow. After retiring, he successfully transitioned to being a sports agent and frequently circulated in sports media circles. Initially, he approached Vivian only to utilize her resources and connections as a reporter, but over time, he discovered he was genuinely attracted to this ambitious woman. From Callum's perspective, Quentin was only showing concern for his situation as a former teammate, unaware that Quentin had already set his sights on what Callum valued most. Quentin knew how to exploit Vivian's ambition and dissatisfaction with the current situation. It began with casual compliments and support, then coincidental dinners together, and finally evolved into secret dates. He painted a beautiful picture for Vivian. Think about it. With your talent and appearance, plus my connections in the sports world, you could soon rise from assistant host to main host, even having your own program. What about Callum? Vivian initially hesitated. Vivian, don't be naive. Quentin shook his head. Look at him now. That knee injury will never heal. He'll only drag you down. While I can give you everything you want. Gradually, Vivian was seduced by this prospect. When Callum returned home exhausted, she began to scorn his condition. Sometimes, she would say she needed to work late, but Callum didn't suspect much until today, when he returned home early and witnessed his wife's betrayal with his own eyes. After leaving home, Callum didn't react as many might imagine, with hysteria or despondency. Instead, he drove to Coach Donovan's office. The results are in. Callum. Donovan held a document, his face full of unconcealable excitement. Dr. Landon's assessment report shows your recovery is even better than we expected. Your knee is completely healed, with strength and flexibility even superior to pre-injury levels. Callum took that precious medical assessment report, his fingers trembling slightly. This was the reward for his perseverance through nearly 2 years of daily training and enduring pain. But Donovan's next words struck him like lightning. There's something else. Donovan mysteriously pulled out another document. The Sydney Falcons are very interested in you. I've already spoken with them, and this is a preliminary contract. You just need to pass their final physical test to officially sign. A 3-year contract, with a salary double your peak, plus opportunities for various commercial endorsements. They believe your comeback will be a legendary story in the rugby world. The Sydney Falcons, the elite club of the Australian Rugby League, last season's runners-up. It's the destination every rugby player dreams of. They're planning to hold a press conference in 3 days, Donovan added. Everything must be kept secret until the official announcement. Callum held these 2 fate-changing documents with a bitter smile. Just as his professional career was about to take a brilliant turn, his personal life was already in pieces. Is something wrong? Donovan keenly sensed that something wasn't right with Callum. Callum briefly told Donovan what had just happened. The old coach angrily slammed the table. That ungrateful woman. And Quentin, what a despicable man. He used to flatter you when you were on the team, and now he stabs you in the back. Perhaps it was all meant to be, Callum said calmly, his voice filled with deep fatigue and disappointment. I should have seen her true face earlier. At my lowest point, she and Quentin chose to betray me. Then, about your comeback. Donovan asked cautiously. Callum's eyes suddenly became determined. Of course I'm coming back. I've worked so hard, not for anyone else, but for myself, to prove I can stand up again. For the next 2 days, Callum stayed in a hotel, preparing for the physical test and press conference. Each day, he received messages and calls from Vivian. From the initial, we need to talk about the divorce agreement, to the later, where are you? Why aren't you responding to my messages? But Callum didn't reply to any of them. Meanwhile, Vivian and Quentin were immersed in what they believed would be their new life. Quentin had already begun helping Vivian contact better job opportunities, promising to use his connections to help her secure a more important position at the sports channel. And Vivian had completely lost patience with Callum on the matter of the divorce agreement. Where has that coward gone? Quentin paced in Vivian's home. The divorce agreement needs to be signed as soon as possible, so you can truly start your new life. Vivian sat on the sofa, playing with her wine glass. He's never gone this long without responding to my messages. Do you think he might do something foolish? Quentin scoffed. Him? Don't worry, he doesn't have the courage. Probably hiding in some small hotel, licking his wounds. By the way, tomorrow the sports channel has an important press conference. I've heard it's about a major signing by the Sydney Falcons. Are you going to be there? Of course. Vivian immediately perked up. The editor-in-chief specifically assigned me. There are rumors that the Falcons will announce a heavyweight reinforcement, but they're keeping who it is a secret. It could be an important exclusive. Vivian was thrilled with this assignment. An important exclusive report was just what she needed to aspire to the presenter position. That night, she and Quentin excitedly discussed the various possibilities. Who could it be? An international star? Or some retired legend making a comeback? Vivian wondered while applying her makeup. Quentin thought for a moment. I have good contacts in the circle, but I know nothing about this. The Falcons have done a great job keeping the secret this time. Whoever it is, Vivian confidently said. Tomorrow I'll seize this opportunity and make all of Australia remember my name. The next day, the press conference hall at the Sydney Falcons headquarters was packed, with reporters from major media occupying the best positions early. Vivian had meticulously groomed herself, her long blonde hair perfectly curled, a deep V-neck blue dress highlighting her elegant figure, and impeccable yet professional makeup. When the club president and coach Donovan took the stage together, the room fell silent. After a brief speech, the president announced with a voice full of expectation, "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our heavyweight new signing, a key figure who will lead the Falcons to fight for the championship next season." The music started playing, the spotlights focused on the entrance. When that figure appeared before everyone, the room erupted in commotion. It was Callum, dressed in the Falcons' pristine uniform, radiant, showing no trace of injury as he strode onto the stage with firm steps. His gaze was confident and self-assured, his muscles clearly defined, with no hint of having been a person tormented by a knee injury. Vivian felt her world stop at that moment. The microphone and interview notebook involuntarily slipped from her hands, producing a sharp noise as they hit the floor. Her face instantly turned pale, her legs feeling as heavy as if filled with lead. "This can't be," she murmured, staring wide-eyed at the vibrant Callum on stage. "As you can see," the president enthusiastically announced, "Callum has fully recovered and will be joining our club on a 3-year contract. Dr. Landon has confirmed that his physical condition is even better than before the injury. This will be one of the greatest comebacks in rugby history." On stage, Callum gazed penetratingly at the reporters below. When he saw Vivian, a barely perceptible cold smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Then he turned indifferently toward the microphone. "I thank the Falcons for giving me this opportunity to return to the field. During this time I've been through a lot, and also lost a lot. But all of this only makes me value current opportunities and truly trustworthy people more." During the question and answer session, someone asked how he had managed to keep his rehabilitation training secret. Callum calmly replied, "When everyone believes you're finished, you actually gain the greatest freedom. I didn't let external voices affect me. I just focused on improving day by day, making each day better than the last." After the press conference, Vivian rushed backstage, trying to speak with Callum, but security personnel stopped her. "Sir has already left," through the side door. Vivian frantically called Callum's phone, only to discover she had been blocked. Messages couldn't be delivered either. She hurriedly returned home, finding all of Callum's personal belongings had disappeared, leaving only a draft divorce agreement on the dining table. This can't be happening. She examined the agreement's content and discovered that according to the terms, because the marriage breakdown was her fault, she would not be entitled to any of Callum's future income, and even from their common property, she would receive only a small portion. At that moment her phone rang. It was the editor-in-chief of the sports channel. "Vivian, what happened at the press conference?" The editor-in-chief's voice was cold. "All of Australia saw you lose composure on live broadcast. And why did you never mention Callum's recovery? Aren't you his wife? As a sports reporter, you missed such major news." Vivian tried to defend herself incoherently. I didn't know either. He kept it from everyone." "Come to the office tomorrow," the editor-in-chief said coldly. "We need to talk about your professional ethics." After hanging up, Vivian collapsed on the sofa, tears flowing uncontrollably. Just then, Quentin pushed through the door, his face grim. "Did you see that?" Quentin's voice was full of anger. "That worthless Callum has risen again. And with the Falcons. That's the richest club in the entire league." Vivian raised her head, desperation in her eyes. He already knew. When he said, "What I received today," he meant this. "Damn it." Quentin paced nervously around the living room. "If I had known he could come back, I never would have." "Well, it's useless to talk about this now. We need to figure out how to fix it." "Fix what?" Vivian smiled bitterly. "My career is probably already over. The editor-in-chief wants to talk about professional ethics tomorrow. And besides," she pointed at the divorce agreement on the table, It's clear Callum doesn't intend to give me any chance. Listen, we can do this, Quentin said urgently. Tomorrow you go see the editor-in-chief and tell him Callum deliberately concealed his recovery, didn't tell you anything. You're the victim, kept in the dark. Do you think he'll just stand by? Vivian calmed down and began to realize the severity of the situation. He could easily make our relationship public. Let everyone know I betrayed him at his lowest point. What position would I have in sports media circles then? Then divorce first, Quentin continued suggesting. Resolve it quickly, then we'll think about how to salvage your career. We might need to separate for a while, until things blow over. Vivian stood up abruptly. Separate? What do you mean? Quentin seemed uncomfortable. What I mean is, in the current situation, our relationship being public doesn't benefit anyone. And, he hesitated, my agent career would also be affected. The sports world is small. If word gets out about me and you. Vivian looked at Quentin in shock. So, now that Callum has risen again, you want to distance yourself from me? Don't say it like that, Vivian. Quentin tried to appease her. I'm just saying we need to be discreet temporarily, until things calm down. Get out. Vivian's voice was low and cold. Get out of my house right now. Quentin was stunned, apparently not expecting Vivian to react this way. He opened his mouth to say something, but finally just shook his head and left. When Quentin's footsteps disappeared beyond the door, Vivian finally broke down. She covered her face, crying silently. In just a few hours, her entire world had crumbled. She had lost her husband, her lover, and might soon lose her job and reputation as well. Meanwhile, Callum was sitting in the luxury hotel suite the Falcons had arranged for him, looking at the night view of Sydney. The phone rang. It was Coach Donovan. Well done, son. Donovan's voice was full of pride. I knew you could do it. The press conference was perfect. The media response is very positive. Thank you, Coach. Callum's voice was calm and determined. Without your help, I wouldn't be here today. About Vivian, Donovan cautiously mentioned. She looked completely shocked. I guess she'll try to contact you. I've cut off all channels of communication, Callum said coldly. The divorce agreement is already with the lawyers. I hope to resolve it as soon as possible. Are you sure you don't need to? I'm sure. Callum decisively interrupted Donovan. She chose to betray me when I needed support the most. I don't hate her, but I won't forgive her either. That relationship is over, permanently over. After hanging up, Callum walked to the balcony, breathing deeply in the night air. Tomorrow, he would begin his first training session with the Falcons. A new beginning, a new life. As for the pain and betrayal of the past, he decided to leave them behind forever. The next day, Vivian arrived early at the Sports Channel office. The editor-in-chief's attitude was more severe than she had expected. Vivian, I've always admired your work. The editor-in-chief's expression was serious. But yesterday's incident forces me to reconsider your position at this station. As a sports reporter, you didn't know about the important news of your own husband's comeback. As a professional, you showed such unprofessionalism in a national live broadcast. I understand your disappointment. Vivian tried to remain calm, but I really wasn't informed. Callum and our relationship was already. I know you're in the process of divorce, the editor-in-chief interrupted. That's your business. But considering the current situation, I've decided to temporarily adjust your position from frontline reporter to content editor, no longer participating in live reporting. Vivian wanted to protest, but finally just nodded. She knew that, under these circumstances, keeping her job was already fortunate. Back at her desk, she noticed her colleagues' attitudes had clearly changed. Some gave her sympathetic glances, while most showed malice or deliberately avoided her. Her phone wouldn't stop vibrating, social media overflowing with speculation and comments about her. Some said she had been deceived by Callum, but many more suspected whether she had betrayed Callum, causing the divorce. During lunch break, a colleague kindly warned her. You might not know yet, Quentin gave an interview on a radio program this morning. He said he and Callum had always been good friends, and he was happy to see Callum return to the field. When asked about his relationship with you, he said you were just normal colleagues. Vivian felt dizzy. Quentin had not only abandoned her, but publicly denied their relationship, even trying to ingratiate himself with Callum. She suddenly understood everything. Quentin had never truly loved her. She was just a tool he used. a piece he could discard at any time. After work, Vivian walked alone through Sydney's streets, feeling an unprecedented loneliness and disorientation. Her phone rang again, a message from the lawyer informing her that Callum had already signed the divorce agreement, and if she agreed to the terms, they could quickly finalize the marriage. Several days passed, and Vivian tried to contact Callum through various channels, but to no avail. She even went to the Falcons training base, but was told Callum didn't want to see her. Finally, after many inquiries, she learned that Callum was temporarily staying in a luxury apartment the Falcons provided for their key players. In the evening, Vivian drove there, holding the divorce agreement and a handwritten letter. She waited a long time downstairs until she saw Callum's car enter the parking lot. When he was heading to the elevator, Vivian intercepted him. "Callum, please give me 5 minutes." Her voice trembled. "Just 5 minutes." Callum's expression was cold and distant, but he finally nodded. 5 minutes. They sat in a corner of the lobby. Vivian tried to explain, tried to apologize, but every word sounded hollow and insignificant. "I didn't know you were still working so hard to recover," she said. "I thought you had already given up." Callum laughed coldly. "Yes, that's exactly how you and Quentin saw me, as a loser, worthless. And precisely that perception made you feel you could betray me without consequences. I know I made a terrible mistake." Vivian's tears flowed freely. "But please believe me, I once truly loved you." "Once," Callum repeated the word, his gaze empty. "That's the problem. When I needed you, you chose to leave. No, more precisely, you chose to betray me. Give me one chance, Callum," Vivian pleaded desperately. "We can start over." Callum shook his head, no trace of hesitation in his eyes. "No, Vivian, some things, once done, can't be undone. Betrayal is one of them." He looked at his watch. "Your 5 minutes are up. What about this?" Vivian took out the divorce agreement. "These terms are too harsh. I get almost nothing. Considering that your infidelity caused the breakdown of the marriage, I think it's quite fair." Callum's tone was inflexible. "If you refuse to sign, we can go through the court process, but the result will only be worse for you." Vivian knew Callum was right. Under Australian marriage law, if one party is clearly at fault, especially for infidelity, the other party would certainly have an advantage in property division. "I'll sign." She finally lowered her head. "But I hope you know I truly regret it." Callum stood up, expressionless. "Regret changes nothing. The lawyer will contact you to complete the final procedures. Goodbye, Vivian." With that, he walked away without looking back even once. Vivian sat alone in the lobby, feeling that something in her life was lost forever. She had sat in that grand lobby, aware that she had just lost a husband who loved her, a promising career, and all because of her greed and short-sightedness. At that moment, her phone rang again. It was an email from the Human Resources Department of the Sports Channel, informing her that due to organizational restructuring, her position would be eliminated and the company would offer 1 month's severance pay. Vivian left the building in a daze. Night had fallen. She knew this was just the beginning of her punishment. The following months were completely different experiences for Callum and Vivian. Callum's return shocked the entire Australian rugby world. "The sleeping lion awakens again." The major sports media described his comeback this way. After several weeks of adaptation and training, he made an outstanding debut with the Falcons, helping the team achieve victory with a brilliant try. Fans went wild, sponsors flocked to him, and his story became a topic of conversation. He threw himself completely into games and training, trying to fill every corner of his life with work, leaving no space to think about the past. Returning to his empty apartment at night, he sometimes felt a hint of loneliness, but immediately told himself that this loneliness was far better than the pain of betrayal. Coach Donovan became his emotional pillar, calling almost daily to inquire about his situation. His teammates were also very supportive, respecting his privacy and avoiding mentioning topics related to Vivian. In comparison, Vivian's life was going downhill. After losing her job, she tried to find opportunities in other media, but quickly discovered her reputation in the industry was in tatters. Whenever her name was mentioned, the response was either a polite rejection or no response at all. Her savings were rapidly depleted, forcing her to leave her original luxury apartment and move into a small single room in the suburbs. Quinton's situation was equally dire. Although Callum never publicly accused him, the rugby world is small and rumors spread quickly. Some players who had good relationships with Callum began refusing to work with Quinton. Worse still, some of his past irregular practices began to be unearthed, taking advantage of young players' trust to sign unfair contracts, forcing injured players to compete without regard for their health, and so on. The Australian Sports Agents Association launched an investigation into Quinton and temporarily suspended his agent license. Without a license, Quinton's clients began terminating contracts, switching to other agents. In just 2 months, he went from being a respected sports agent to a pariah in the circle. One evening, Vivian received a call from Quinton. Since their last unfriendly parting, they had not been in contact for 2 months. Vivian, Quinton's voice sounded somewhat dejected. Can we meet and talk? Vivian wanted to refuse, but finally agreed. They met at an inconspicuous cafe, deliberately avoiding the upscale places they used to frequent. Quinton's appearance had noticeably deteriorated, the once immaculate suit replaced by a casual t-shirt and jeans. I've been suspended. Quinton got straight to the point. The association is investigating several of my past cases. I heard, Vivian responded calmly. I'm sorry for you. It's Callum pulling strings behind the scenes. It must be. Quinton said angrily. He's taking revenge on us. Vivian shook her head. Do you have any evidence? I know Callum. He's not that type of person. Besides, even if he did, so what? Haven't we brought this upon ourselves? Quinton fell silent for a moment, then suddenly asked, Do you still love him? This question caught Vivian off guard. She thought of Callum's cold gaze, of those days once filled with love, of her own choice to betray. It doesn't matter anymore, she finally answered. He will never forgive me. This is the consequence of my own choices. What about us? Quinton tentatively asked. Can we start over? Vivian smiled bitterly. Start over? Now you think about starting over? After publicly disavowing our relationship, after I lost everything? I was just scared then, Quinton defended himself. I was afraid of losing my career, my clients. Just like I was afraid of losing my career, so I betrayed Callum. Vivian interrupted. We're equally selfish, Quinton. But at least now I see clearly who I am. What about you? You're still looking for excuses. They parted on bad terms. Vivian walked home, suddenly realizing that what had been between her and Quinton was never true love, but rather mutual exploitation between two ambitious people. This realization made her feel both relieved and saddened. Time continued to pass. The divorce procedures were quickly completed, officially ending the marriage between Callum and Vivian. Callum's career continued to rise, while Vivian struggled to begin anew. After months of effort, Vivian finally found work at a small digital media outlet as a content editor. The salary was only half of what she earned at the sports channel, and the work environment was far from her previous one, but at least she could support herself. She began to reflect on her past choices, realizing that it was greed and vanity that had clouded her judgment. Meanwhile, Callum's life gradually returned to normal. His excellent performance on the field restored the respect of fans and media. He began giving some interviews, talking about his recovery experience and future plans, but never mentioned his marriage to Vivian. For that failed relationship, he chose silence. On a rainy night a year later, Vivian was walking alone through Sydney's streets and happened to pass by a sports bar. On the television, they were broadcasting a Falcons match led by Callum. She stopped, looking through the rain and window glass at the energetic Callum on screen. During this year, she had often thought of contacting him, telling him her regret and asking for forgiveness, but always held back. She knew that some mistakes, once made, have no remedy. Callum had clearly drawn the line, and she too had to accept this reality. At that moment, a familiar figure staggered out of the bar. It was Quinton, completely drunk, looking disheveled. He saw Vivian and lurched toward her. Look at that bastard, Quinton pointed at Callum on the screen. He won, completely won. And us? Discarded like garbage. We weren't discarded, Quinton, Vivian said calmly. We chose the wrong path. We ourselves. Quinton laughed derisively. You've changed, Vivian. The old Vivian wouldn't have given up so easily. This isn't giving up. Vivian looked at him, compassion in her eyes. It's accepting reality. We did wrong, and now we're facing the consequences. It's all lies. Quinton spat. Just wait and see. He'll fall from his pedestal sooner or later. Vivian shook her head and walked away. No, Quentin. Callum won't fall from his pedestal, at least not for the reasons we'd expect. He achieved success again through his skill and determination. That's undeniable to anyone. So what? Quentin followed Vivian. You plan to live like this forever? Eternally remorseful? No. Vivian turned to look at him, determination flashing in her eyes. I'm going to start over. Not for Callum, not to prove anything, but for myself. I made a mistake, but I won't let that mistake define the rest of my life. Quentin was stunned, apparently not expecting this response from Vivian. Finally, he just shook his head and walked away into the rain, soon disappearing from sight. Vivian continued on her way, rain and tears mixing on her face. She knew she could never win back Callum's heart, nor change the choices of the past, but at least she could try to rebuild her life from the ruins. 2 years later, Callum led the Falcons to win the league championship, undisputedly becoming Australia's #1 rugby player. On the field, the image of him lifting the trophy was captured by all media. Off the field, his charitable foundation helped many promising young athletes overcome injuries. His story inspired countless people, becoming an example of perseverance. That year, Callum also began a new relationship. Serena was a child psychologist, kind, gentle, and full of wisdom. Unlike Vivian, Serena loved Callum as a person, not for his fame or status. Their relationship was discreet and stable, and soon, Callum proposed to her, receiving an affirmative response. The wedding was held on a picturesque beach in Sydney, surrounded by family and friends. Coach Donovan, as best man, said emotionally, "Seeing Callum find true happiness is my greatest satisfaction as a coach." Vivian saw the wedding photos through social media. The image of Callum and Serena embracing and smiling in the sunlight evoked mixed feelings in her. She didn't feel jealous, only happy for Callum, while also regretting her own foolishness from before. After these years of reflection, Vivian's life had also taken a new direction. She abandoned the idea of returning to mainstream media and began managing a small sports commentary website, focusing on offering a female perspective on sports. Although small, it gradually gained recognition from readers thanks to her professional knowledge and sincere attitude. Quentin's ending was more desolate. After the permanent revocation of his agent license, he tried various jobs, but none lasted due to character issues. Alcohol and gambling became part of his life, accumulating debts. Once, he tried to crash Callum's celebration party while drunk, claiming he was seeking justice, but was immediately subdued by security and ignominiously removed. This scene was captured by the media, becoming his last public image. Shortly afterwards, he left Sydney, rumored to have gone to Melbourne to seek distant relatives, and disappeared from the public eye. Callum seemed completely indifferent to all this. His life was full of light, career at its peak, love sweet and happy, even beginning to consider starting a family. When some reporter asked him about his former teammate Quentin, he would only briefly reply, "That's water under the bridge." 5 years later, one day, Vivian was working in a cafe when she happened to see Callum and Serena pass by with their twin daughters. The girls were about 3 years old, lively and lovely, one resembling Callum, the other Serena. Callum looked more mature and stable than in her memories, with undeniable happiness in his eyes. For a moment, Vivian thought of approaching to say hello, but finally decided against it. Some boundaries, once established, should not be crossed again. She watched them walk away, then returned to her work. That's how life is. Every choice has its price. Vivian chose betrayal, paying with the loss of a man who truly loved her and the happiness she could have had. Callum chose perseverance and dignity, paid with the pain of betrayal, but ultimately found a stronger self and true happiness. As for Quentin, his greed and selfishness finally left him with nothing. The talent and opportunities he once had, all ruined by his own choices. For betraying a friend for short-term benefits, he lost all dignity and future. In the city of Sydney, the life trajectories of these 3 people extended in different directions, never to intersect again. Callum embraces his new life, never forgiving those who betrayed him, but also not letting past pain torment him. Vivian accepts her mistakes and consequences, rebuilding a simple but dignified life among the ruins. While Quentin continues to struggle in the bitter fruits he himself sowed, unable to escape the shadows of the past. This is the power of choice and the price of betrayal. On life's path, every step is crucial because some mistakes, once made, can never be undone. If this story has resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. We hope to see you in another story soon.